Dink, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, which
Woohoo!
is
Two winners here.
horrible. Yeah, seriously. There's
Yeah.
me. Here's Schu. But I guess to make it official, I'll tell you what. You got the zoo there. You want to play us in?
Oh crap! Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hold on. You only wanted me to do that so that you could take a drag off of your e-cig.
No, I'll take a drag off of it on camera. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just like the official kind of feeling of you playing the song
Do you?
to get us into the show.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
nice. That's sweet.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Actually, to be really honest, I like that we've got a theme song. I like that we've got I like that we're very low micro budge, meaning negative money
Yes.
production that does stuff like that. So
Right.
very DIY.
Mhm.
Anyways, since we really don't have a major topic, I just kind of figured we could chat about stuff that we've been seeing recently. And
Sure, sounds good to me.
I didn't mention this to you before
That's
we went on
better
the
if you
air.
didn't.
Yes, but I did see. I saw Boyhood today, the new Richard Linklater flick.
No, did you?
Have you know the film?
No.
No. Okay, so
I'll never be in a film geek. No,
Fair
I don't know
enough,
what you're talking about.
okay, so Boyhood is a movie that Richard Linklater has been making for the past, I would say, 14 years probably, or 13
Okay, I think I am
years.
aware of it. Yes.
Yeah, so he started. It's the story of a kid from first grade to end graduation in high school, so 6 to 18. And he filmed every year. He filmed segments of the movie every year until the kid graduated high school. So what you have is a 2-hour and 40-minute movie about a child growing up. About a boy growing up, and it has Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette as the kid's parents.
Okay.
And then Linklater's daughter actually plays his sister. So they are the main consistent characters. Even though, fascinatingly enough, he was able to get some side characters who appear throughout the movie also near the end of the film. So it's I would call it a gimmick, but it's not really a gimmick because it works really well. You know, I guess it's only a gimmick if it fucks up and fails.
Well, it sounds a little bit like the fictional version of the 7-Up series.
Yeah, sort of like the 7-Up series, or like the and I think my guess is his inspiration came from Truffaut's Antoine Daniel series with Jean-Pierre Laud from 400 Blows and Stolen Kisses and all those films as well. Because again, those are I think 5 movies in a short that watch this character growing up, and so it's very much in that vein. But
It's a good idea.
yeah, it really is. It really is. And when it is constructed in a 2-hour and 40-minute film, it's incredibly successful. Now, it's funny because also what's bizarre about it is it's cool because it's anchored in the time of when it was shot. So it's like you'll hear, so like his sister in one scene is singing "Whoops, I Did It Again," and they talk about Star Wars and how there'll never be another Star Wars movie because where do you go after Jedi? And if you're and watching it today, you're like, if you're not aware of the fact that that scene was shot, 8 years ago, you'd be like, oh, how fucking stupid is this scene? But knowing all of the things that you're knowing going into it, it's really fascinating.
In addition, if folks wanted to write period pieces about this little section in 10, 20 or so years from now, because everybody wants to relive their childhood and the rest of it, it seemed like this would be a nice movie perhaps to fall back on to get a good gauge as to what was popular in what specific time frame.
Very much, because it also covers, it's like when the kid is young, you see him playing video games, so you've got like early Game Boys moving up through Xbox and stuff. You've got like, which I didn't even know they existed like back in 2001, 2002 when he started the project, which was like an old Sears catalog because they were looking at the lingerie models in like a thick ass fucking catalog.
Interesting. Wow.
And I thought those things were gone by like
long
late
gone
80s.
by then, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But apparently in Texas, no, those things still
There you are.
But it's an incredibly genuine and honest movie. It's great because it's like you would expect movies like this about like the kid's first love, the kid's first kiss, and having these melodramatic scenes and stuff about it. All that stuff is basically removed from it. You never actually, as a matter of fact, I don't think you ever No, you see him making out with a girl, but there's never that tender moment of him like having his first kiss or anything like that. He's just next year he's into girls now. He's dating. He's it's like it's just that it just tosses you into the real life of or a life of a boy growing up, and I really liked how he did that. He doesn't. It's odd going in. I wasn't sure what to expect going in, because I was wondering if it would be broken down into sections, like year 1, year 2, year 3, or
Sure.
something like that. But it's not. It's this incredibly fluid thing where all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, they're out of that house. They're in the house they were talking about moving to. We're now like a year later. And for the first few years, it's almost tough to see the kid grow. It's really kind of fascinating to watch childhood development in a way, because like we probably look and are about the same with minor haircut changes or whatever up until about 10, 11, and then puberty hits, and all
Right.
of a sudden you see these major differences. Like within 1 year, the kid sprouts, right? Or his sister, who she's great, by the way, Linklater's daughter, who of course is an interesting bit of stunt casting, just because you've always got her. I was expecting to be kind of so-so, but I thought she was really fantastic. I liked her better than I liked him and his team when he grew older and into a teenager. And watching Patricia Arquette age and watching Ethan Hawke age is really interesting. Patricia Arquette is not getting a lot of attention for this film, which is a shame, because she has the hardest character to play, as that of because she and Ethan Hawke are divorced, and you watch her go through 2 more marriages, struggle to get a degree, just dealing with being a single parent and worrying about her children, and really at the end of it not knowing what she has of her life. What has she, all this time she's been basically living for other people. And now all of a sudden when he leaves for college near the end, she kind of has this interesting little breakdown. She also has one of the most ingenuous scenes in the film, and I don't know why they put it in there, other than they wanted to show that she had some impact on another person's life. But there's this odd setup scene where she sees a guy, a Latino worker who's helping put in a sewer pipe, and she's like, you should really go back into school, and da 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 da. And near the end, he's like, a manager of a restaurant. He's like, thanks to you. And I'm like, eh. And yeah, and it's weird because it's right near the end. It's like in the last 20 minutes of the film, and you're like, why would you give that to us? Because it feels so set up, like everything else. Even though
So how was this? Did he have the script laid out?
I don't know. To be really honest, I'm not entirely sure. I think he had like an outline and then would adapt it over time as he would talk to the kid each year, and I think kind of figure out where the kid was at in his life and understand what he was doing, because the kid is not a professional actor, whose name I can't think of at this point in time. Ephraim something or Ethan something, and that's totally wrong. So I think what he kind of had an overlay of how he wanted to deal with, I think, probably look at divorce and how these types of things have effects, and with Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette already being established actors, being able to kind of figure out their chunk of it or their arcs, and then how that could affect the child as time goes on. But all of his stuff is very kind of devoid of their lives. I mean, is very set. Like any kid, the life he's living is very separate from what they're living and going through.
Right.
So I think he was able to kind of go through and and have something, but then as chatting with a kid, he'd be able to say, oh, you know what, this is interesting and that's interesting. Let's move this in and let's move that out or something like that. Because again, it's not plot driven. It's just let's watch a kid grow up for 2.5 hours, and it works really well most of the time. And I got to tell you, I didn't feel it until the last 20 or so minutes where I was like, oh, this is where they're going out, and they don't. And you're like, oh, this is where they're. So you don't feel the time until the last 20 minutes or so. So, and for a 2 hour, I think it's 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Wow, that's impressive. Huh.
Yeah, it really flows well. And it's and I think also the deal is like you feel at first almost as if he's kind of doing like 12 minutes a year, but that quickly changes, and by the time you get to year 18, it's the largest portion of the the single portion of the film of a single age. And I think that's kind of where the pacing kind of issue I wouldn't say fizzles out. It's just you're all of a sudden like, okay, you're wrapping this up, but I'm not sure what you're going for, or how, is there something, are you going to have like are you going to have a button on this? How are you going to handle this? And so I got a little antsy near the end there, but knowing that now and probably rewatching it again, which I'm sure I will at some point, it's fantastic. It's almost like he took Slacker and Dazed and Confused, and kind of mushed that together in an odd way, because you've got lots of little vignette bits along the way of different characters, like you would with Slacker, but again, it's about kind of a kid going through life and trying to make decisions and figure out who he wants to be, like with Dazed and Confused. So it's a really interesting film, and I'd say check it out if you're into that kind of thing. No special effects, 2 hours and 40 minutes, watch a kid grow up, and again, the gimmick of it really is splendid. It works really well, and it's after a while you're like, you feel as if you're growing up with him, because at one point in time I'm watching this when he's a teenager. I'm like, God, that was the little kid. That was that little kid. Yeah, it's been crazy watching him grow up.
How much of it did he luck into because there was enough of the kid's story to have material for, or did it appear that he was going to write certain bits into how the kid was, going to grow up, expected to grow up, and make the movie around that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's something that I'd have to look up on an interview with him.
Part of the gamble here, conceivably, if you're doing a movie that almost it's fictional, but it's quasi documentary-ish at the same time. If the main kid you're doing it about is boring and
right.
just doesn't have a whole hell of a lot going on, where do
right.
you go?
Right. Yeah, and the funny thing is, nothing exciting happens. I mean, there's not. Right. I mean, other than kind of the regular trials and tribulations of growing up, this is not a movie about high drama moments, or there's not the I'm 16 and I'm drinking and I'm in a car crash and now I got to deal with the repercussions. It's not. And at times you're almost like waiting for that to happen, because you see him as a teenager drinking and there's no consequence, and you're kind of like, okay, you know what? That's completely fair. How many,
right.
bazillions of teenagers go through that, and there's never any consequence, and you survive, and you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that angle of it was really kind of cool. It's not about it's not about high drama most of the time. With some of the ex-husbands and stuff, there's some moments of like, oh shit, how we got to get out of this situation. But it's also never. It's always. I want to say for the majority of it, his point of view. I don't think they ever, as a matter of fact, I don't think they ever stray away from him. So whenever he gets there, if something has happened with the mom and one of the exes, he's missed it. He only sees repercussions. He only sees aftermath. And that's something that's really kind of interesting as well, is that it's very much his point of view, how he sees the world. And it's done, and it's not handheld. It's not done in kind of a verite style or anything like that. It's like Linkletter films. He uses these beautiful wide tracking shots, and he has a very simple style, but it's set up. I mean, everything is composed. Everything is put together. It's not a let's catch as catch can kind of filmmaking. And that was another kind of I don't know why I might have been expecting that, because he's never done that with any of his other films.
But it would be logical to expect. Because it feels like it has documentary concepts to it.
Yeah, completely, and
therefore you'd think maybe it'll have those aspects running through it as well. It's an interesting idea. I'm glad it came out as well as it did.
Yeah,
and
I was
really neat, because it's certainly an ambitious project that you're investing a decade and a half to try to ultimately make something work and hoping it comes through. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and there are articles about the financing, because of course he had to, it's not one of those things of give me this much money and over the next 12 years I'll deliver a film. It was every year you're investing in something that's going to come out in 12 years. Right.
Wow.
And so it was, and though I did notice one of the producers was John Sloss, who is a famous entertainment lawyer. Who has worked a lot in independent film over the years. He was there very early on in the indie film movement of the 90s. I mean, he helped a lot with. He was Kevin Smith's attorney for a while, and worked with Miramax, and worked with New Line and all these other kind of indie companies, and Sony Pictures, to kind of work deals and do this whole thing. So here's a guy who really kind of understood film finance. So and I think trusting Linkletter's.
Track record.
Commitment over track record over the years. And again, he's not a guy who has made bazillion-dollar movies, but also I think the total for this one was like $2.1 million. So this is not exactly You know, this was not a gigantic budget movie, but at the same time, you're still going to people saying, "Hey, I need 200,000 this year for
It's not coming out in another 9 years."
Exactly. Yeah. And and it's like God forbid, what if one of the actors passes away? What if anything would happen? There's a lot of weird risk involved with it, that people would need to take in consideration. But it paid off in spades, and he's got something that's incredibly unique and really worth checking out if you're into movies. And as far as I know, something of this has never been done before. So,
Yeah.
So, but so moving on from the art house world, what have you been? Have you been to the Cheaps at all recently?
Yeah. What did I see? I saw Neighbors, and I saw.
Oh, right.
Saw. Well, let me think on what else I saw, because I'm not remembering. It was a summer. I saw Captain America too.
Oh, okay.
And thought Captain America was pretty well done. Really well done.
I have to say how much that impresses me, because you are not a superhero movie person.
No, not particularly. And I've gotten to the point, and we've talked about this on some FGPs in the past, where I think Marvel and many people in the geek aspect, the expanded geek community that have gone on to make films, they care genuinely about the product that they're trying to make, much more, I think, than at any point in cinema before. Which is a good start. That's a good starting point. I think they're probably ultimately about 50-50 on what they come out with. Maybe it's 60-40 as being decent to good. But I thought I think you could favorably argue that if you were ranking, and of course many people have done this, ranking their favorite or best superhero films, that I could make a good argument that the two Captain America movies are top 10 worthy.
Yeah, you're not. They are my two favorite of the entire Marvel lot so far.
And I think I would agree with that as well. They do a really nice job of, and the main actor's excellent.
Chris Evans is great. Yeah, Chris Evans is really solid.
And there's a lot of they have a really good grasp of what that character is, and it's surprising because that should be a very difficult character to do. But they've done a nice job of moving that character into the modern realm, maintaining his ethical code and balancing that all at the same time. And I think,
and it never becomes jingoistic or any rah-rah America, anything.
Yeah,
it's about the ideals without it being about America.
Mm-hmm. I think there was, there was. I was concerned, I think, a little bit early on. There was a lot of sledgehammer NSA, ultra spying sort of stuff. But then they did a nice job of explaining why that fit in the way that it did.
Right.
So that was helpful. And then it progressed from there, and I think hit most of the spots that it was supposed to. I thought it was I thought it was pretty well done. I'm trying to think of what else. I haven't seen X-Men yet. That just popped up at the Cheaps, so I'll probably see that within the next few days. That might be an.
I will be very curious to see.
Yeah, because I know you didn't like it very much, and I know there are a lot of other folks out there who have liked it a lot.
Yeah. Now, and the funny thing is, I've seen it twice. I saw it once on my own, and then Scientist Steph wanted to see it, so I went with her again. And being able to sit through it twice shows that at least it's not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. It's just I feel like with every other X-Men movie, it's probably just not going to age very well.
Okay.
And it has, I don't know, it just seems kind of redundant to me. All of the X-Men movies to me always feel like they're giving us the exact same story from a different character's point of view.
Right.
And and it's just kind of, that's just the way it works. But you saw Neighbors as well, you mentioned.
Yes. And it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'll remember it, or I think it was probably 3 or 4 days ago since I saw it. And I'm not sure I remember a whole hell of a lot about it. I wasn't detested by it, and there were some moments that were pretty good. It's ultimately generally got a good heart. There were some spots that are all right, and a lot of stuff that was just kind of flat. So it was okay.
Right.
Yeah, I remember you talking, and maybe you and I talked a little bit earlier about the Judd Apatow.
Sure, conservative.
Presenting a conservative growing up mentality, nuclear family mentality in the midst of some raunch comedy along the way. And this certainly fell within that theme.
Yeah.
I thought at times it was heavy-handed, morality-driven, and when those moments occurred, the dialogue wasn't good enough to ultimately carry it.
Right.
And then it felt sort of like you're trying to figure out what to say here, and yeah, there isn't really a heck of a lot of originality to it. But generally speaking, it was all right. It certainly wasn't. I've heard terrible things about the McFarlane film, which I have not seen yet.
Oh, I did watch that.
It's also popped up at the Cheaps, and so I'm curious about that one. But this one was, I don't consider this one great. I don't consider it terrible either. It was perfectly good for what it tried to set out to do, and that's okay.
Yeah. Did I tell you I saw A Million Ways to Die in the West?
I think you did, and I believe the general review for that has been that you saw everything that was reasonably good in the previews.
Yeah, there's one gag that isn't in the trailers that I thought was funny, and everything else about it is completely banal. I was fascinated by it. It's funny because there's a couple podcasts I've been listening to. They talk about what's the difference between a passion project and a vanity project. And it kind of became this thing of, well, a passion project is a vanity project that succeeds. That's good, right? If it fails, then it's a vanity project. If it succeeds, then it was a passion project. I have very different feelings about it. I think there's definitely a difference between passion and vanity, but this to me is very much I'm Seth MacFarlane. Look how cute and funny I am.
Right. I'm the funniest guy in the room. Fuck you, laugh at me.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's the same joke, and it's a 2-hour movie.
Is it really?
It's 2 hours, and it feels it, and it's just continually the same jokes over and over and over again. And it's like when he pushes a joke, and there are times, I'm not a fan of MacFarlane, but I'm also not I wouldn't say I'm a detractor of him either. I think he's done I've seen some things that are very funny and other things that aren't. Some things work.
Fair enough.
Ted, for the most part, I would say kind of worked. I thought Ted was actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But this one just... It really was, and if it was somebody else playing him, I don't know if it would, it would still suck. I mean, it wouldn't matter who played the character, but him letting himself play the lead does not help it at all.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where his sense of humor is all about repetitiveness and like pushing something to the breaking point at times, and so you would just have the same joke, literally within. Like, he would just push the same joke over and over again for 10 minutes. And really, the entire movie is a joke of, doesn't the Old West really suck? Wouldn't it have sucked to live back then? And you're like, yeah, it would have, but that's why we live now. And they didn't fucking know any better then, so that's how it was. Yeah, and there's just some stuff in it you're like, all right, whatever. And I don't know.
Do you think Monty Python's Meaning of Life, which covered a lot of life sucked, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago,
sure.
200 years ago, did a better job?
Oh yeah, well, Meaning of Life, which I adore also, and I know it's not a lot of people's favorites. They're all Holy Grail folks, which is fair. But Meaning of Life at least does a lot of popping around, and it's like you've got the fish, you've got the people in the third world, the people in the first world, all the different Mr. Creosote, of course, all these different things. They're sketches. It's very much a sketch show based around the concept of living in the world, modern, past, what have you. And so it's I enjoy Meaning of Life quite a bit, and I think it's a lot more surreal than this. This one kind of tries to throw some the non sequitur jokes like you would see in a Family Guy or something like that at you, and it's old hat by now, and I think the non sequitur thing just doesn't work that often unless there's something to link it more than just the throwing darts at a board.
Does that work better in animation than it does in real?
Yes, totally. Because in animation, again, in animation, you can go anywhere and do anything. You can really deliver a crazy weird joke. Like I know in the original season of Family Guy way back when, they did the Kool-Aid joke a few times, where the Kool-Aid man would bust through the wall and then kind of realize that he wasn't supposed to be there and would quietly sneak away. There was stuff like that. The shock of those kind of things happening would always be great. But I think over time, especially now, even with Family Guy and everything, it's it'd be it's like that time I saw Betty White eating spaghetti, and it's who cares. It's the darts at the board. Let's pick
it's kind of and it's an interesting study, and I appreciate that there are a lot of there are a lot of folks out there who I appreciate their sense of humor,
Sure.
like McFarlane, and I've never been in that camp. I just and I understand that comedy is a
Subjective.
very much so,
Yeah.
and maybe when you try to break down the whole opinion thing and why somebody likes anything, comedy ranks there very much at the top, and there are a variety of different approaches toward what's funny, and as you watch something in a certain frame of time, why a comedy from the 70s or a comedy from 40s or why Charlie Chaplin doesn't hold up,
Right.
to a lot of folks. That has a lot to do with the cultural moment that you're watching it and what's funny at the time.
Sure.
And I tend to land in the South Park comedy camp.
Right.
And they did a famous two-parter that ripped Family Guy.
Right. Right. The manatee.
And the manatee episode of South Park has kind of always been how I've viewed McFarlane and Family Guy. And even having people convince me that I need to watch Family Guy more, that I need to watch more McFarlane, that I need to check it out, that you're going to come around on it. The non sequiturs work. It all fits in. I've tried.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't. Now, interestingly enough, like you, I thought Ted was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't a perfect film. It does what a lot of comedies do. It more or less goes through the motions because you have to wrap up something in the third act, so it falls under the same vein that a lot of comedies ultimately do. But I thought it was pretty good. And while not hysterical, I thought there was enough in it that I enjoyed it, and I thought it stood on its own as a solid comedy film.
Yeah, and it proves that Mark Wahlberg is quite good with comedy. Mark Wahlberg does excellent time.
That helps. But you got, McFarlane was the guy, and you got to give him credit for putting it together.
Yeah.
And he did. Now, not having seen this, I don't know that I've heard anybody who said a good thing about it.
Yeah.
And that suggests to me, maybe this is one that missed the mark. Maybe he's run its course, and I appreciate that comedy's also a difficult thing that you have to tweak it a little bit to try to stay fresh. But it's very difficult also to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. There's a certain way that people tell jokes. There's a certain way that jokes are delivered. There's a certain way that your mind works to create humor. And some folks who I think are very funny fall under this category as well. So, maybe McFarlane has kind of run its course and it's time for something. I think Adam Sandler has, fallen under this category as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sandler hasn't been funny for 15 years. Yeah. And Sandler was another guy that I never really got. I could watch a couple of the movies that folks like and say, oh, okay. But I never thought Sandler was funny, and I felt like kind of the old codger who missed the mark on him too, and feel like to a large degree McFarlane is the same way. So I recognize comedy as a very subjective thing, and I also recognize my own opinions coming into it. But if McFarlane, it's possible that maybe this is the one movie we look back at that just sucked.
Yeah.
And he just completely missed the mark on it. If he keeps doing them, maybe they're a little bit better. But, it'll be interesting to see if this is just a blip on the radar for a lot of folks or just, transitional.
Yeah, I don't
maybe run its course.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to find a cult audience. It might. If it does, I'll be really fascinated to see who those people are. It also doesn't help it that it came out near the 40th anniversary of Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
But that aside, what it does show is how well Blazing Saddles worked versus this, because Blazing Saddles sure has the fart jokes and everything else like that.
Right.
But what really keeps Blazing Saddles going is the the satire on racism.
Right.
Is this kind of this fascinating theme of racism and using the West to be able to explore those ideas, whereas this is just exploring doesn't the Old West suck, and that's all it's doing.
Okay.
And you're like, it's like nobody today is going to be offended and go, no, you missed the best time in the world because of the Old West. Nobody's going to say that shit. And it's just kind of him pointing out things of the history of the way photography worked.
Is it just bullshit arrogance?
Probably, yeah. It's highly possible. It's just there's nothing. It's an empty movie.
Thinks we glorify an era where it was really tough to live, and maybe we shouldn't. Is that his point?
I guess, but it's like, who are we? I mean, do we ever
Yeah.
glorify it, or do we just use it as a setting to make fun movies? You know, I mean,
Right. Right.
it's like we've already had I mean, the revisionist westerns of the '70s
Hmm.
expressed that it wasn't cool and fun, and it wasn't cowboys
Right.
and Indians and all that
Yeah.
shit.
And so
So,
if you're and so if you're trying to stick it to the John Wayne crowd, we've had 40 years of westerns who've done that anyway.
yeah, and what John Wayne crowd? I mean, I hate to say this, there are those of us who kind of can appreciate a John Wayne film. I mean, you know, watch Red River or The Searchers or whatever else.
Well, I think you could.
99% of the world doesn't give a shit about John Wayne anymore.
Well, I think you could argue in that regard. Now, this might be branching out a little bit, and I don't know McFarlane's political take, but you could definitely suggest that John Wayne has sort of become this pillar for traditional conservative values. Whatever the machination of that ultimately is, and if you feel that that's a political perspective that you don't like, perhaps this is a way to try to get across that maybe John Wayne was a dick, or that the representation of what you think it is wasn't anywhere near where it ultimately was. Still,
Right?
if it was
Yeah.
funny, screw it. What does it matter?
Yeah, and really, this film doesn't do anything like that. I mean, there's no theme to this movie other than doesn't the Old West blow? You know, it wasn't as good as we thought it was, and if you're really honest, every single one of us could say no shit.
Right.
So,
Right.
So it's obvious in a weird way. Hold on here, adjust this a little bit. Yeah, now I'm looking awful.
Oh, you got it going on. You got some shirt on. Can you
So
see my T-shirt's badass, by the way?
I can't see it. Let's check it out.
There we go. How's that? Look at that. Oh, that's right.
Llama Fest?
Llama Fest, baby.
What the hell is Llama Fest?
What do you mean, what the hell's Llama Fest?
Please tell me Llama Fest.
Involving llamas.
Is this a real thing?
Yes.
Where is this held?
Okay, I'll let you venture a guess. Where would someone have Llama Fest? In the U.S., not, in Oman or something.
Where would llamas be in the? This is I guess I have to plead general ignorance on this. I have no idea what. Oh, okay, fair enough.
Because Utah just doesn't make sense. Let's go with Utah.
You'll go with Utah has an abundance
Utah has
of
a llama
llamas.
fest. There's also, if you happen to be from Tucson driving to Las Vegas, you go through Boulder City. There's also the largest alpaca import store in the country, possibly the world. So if you need an alpaca import, you can go to Boulder City. It's right on Highway 93. So I'm thinking the next time I go to Vegas, I was really a little upset I didn't do it this time, that I'm going to have to pick me up to go along with the Llama Fest T-shirt. I'm going to have to get an alpaca T-shirt as well. And eventually, if I can get a camel T-shirt, then I think I have a lot of it covered.
We're going to need to contact the alpaca people to see if they will sponsor the show.
That would be.
I think that would be wicked. We will make a commercial for because really you just told us that brilliant. It may be the largest alpaca import place in the world. That's we've got an alpaca for all your alpaca needs.
We're packing alpaca.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. I'm not going to argue with that.
I can't wait for Seth MacFarlane's alpaca.
So what takes place at Llama Fest?
I think there are people with booths who sell llama-related merchandise and maybe have animals that spit at you.
Okay,
get llama
this is where the question sounds stupid.
There's a big one hump versus two hump argument.
But I thought, really, for llamas?
Sure. Well, I see, because I'm sure you have the camel people and then you have your alpaca people.
Right.
But the llama people are probably hardliners as well.
Okay, so what is a llama-based accoutrement? Like what do you like keychains and shit?
Blanket?
Oh, so like actual llama fur-based products.
Yeah, right.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking just like, stuffed llamas or do they have a screening of Dr. Dolittle, but it's only the scene with the two-headed llama at night?
Right, yes. The push me pull you?
Oh my god, yes. The fact that you even remember that scares me. Yes, the push me pull you. And I'm sure they must have a push me pull you shirt there for people.
Oh, if they do, son of a bitch, I should have. I'm gonna really kick. If they had a push me pull you shirt, and all these years I've driven through Boulder City and haven't stopped at alpaca imports,
right?
CEO, I'm gonna be really upset.
Yeah, I would. It'd be awesome too if Llama Fest got like the two kids from Dr. Dolittle to show up and sign autographs because they worked with push me pull you.
That would
and
be
it could
good.
regale people with llama stories about what it was like to, the special effects involved in making the push me pull you and stuff like that. Because it's a good looking creature when they bring it out and they're like actually walking it back and forth.
Right.
It's impressive. It's an impressive llama.
Yeah, indeed it is.
So, and what time of year does Llama Fest take place?
I think Llama Fest is a late summer, early fall activity.
Wow, so it could be coming up soon.
It could be coming up soon. There
Oh.
might be. We may have to look online to see if there's a Llama Fest near you.
We should broadcast live from Llama Fest.
Indeed, we should. Yeah, I think we should.
That would be.
I'll promise to wear this shirt and
Yeah.
not upset the ranks by wearing my alpaca or camel shirt.
See, I was gonna say, yeah. So you're gonna be the guy that wears the team shirt
Right.
to what you're gonna see. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear my Metallica shirt to the Metallica concert because I'm that guy.
Because you're that guy. Yep, I'm that guy.
Fair enough.
I wear my Marillion shirts to Marillion concerts all the time. Thing is, there aren't that many Marillion concerts, so I'm generally okay.
And probably fewer Marillion shirts is my guess as well.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is showing up and impressing people because they're like, holy shit.
There actually is Marillion
2014
shirt. What a bitch. Right.
When's the last time Marillion toured?
Marillion tours all the time, but they rarely come to the States. They were in L.A. a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were in L.A. a couple summers ago, and I didn't have an opportunity to go check them out. They were also at Baja Prague, which is a festival in Mexicali, Baja, Mexico.
Did you go?
Of course, I have attended on about a half dozen occasions. So that's always fun. Always fun.
You do a reverse fence jump to go to Mexico, right? To watch Marillion. Oh, I lost you. Hold on here. Hold on. And we have lost Schu. Can't hear you. I know. How do I unmute Schu? This is where life gets crazy. Okay, now you are unmuted. Give us a shot. Now, I think you're muted on your side. You may want to check your little settings down there. See if you're. Did you click on your little microphone up top? All right. Let's see. I guess I could. You talk, and I'll just fill in your voice. I guess.
So there I am in Mexico, watching the Marillion concert, and I got to jump the fence to get into Mexico, which is kind of tough to do.
I don't like I'm doing a Dr. Nick voice for you. I don't know why that's the angle.
And there I am with my corpse. Me and Tremendo, we going through the WWE, and let me tell you about this Sheamus guy. This Sheamus guy is a real prick.
Somebody just died recently too. I forget who it was. A couple people have died recently, I think. Yeah, you can say who it is. I'm not going to be able to hear you. So you have no idea what's going on, do you? Did you click on something? No? No. Interesting. Interesting. Let me, cameraman, let me go to my toolbox here. Let's see what, yeah, for some reason your thing. I'll tell you what, do me a favor, log out or click off and then click back in again. And we'll see what's going on there. Maybe that'll bring you back. Did your microphone come unplugged maybe? So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. I will vamp, and I'll vamp. You click off and sign back in, and we'll see how that works. All right. Watch. There he is. Consciously trying to figure out how to get out, but he doesn't know. This is. There we go. Okay. So while Schu's gone for a minute or two. I also witnessed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and excellent film. I think Dawn of the Planet of the Apes this new Planet of the Apes series is really fantastic. I think they have achieved what the original series has been able to achieve, yet using the latest special effects and kind of looking into the politics of our time and using these films as an allegory for the real world, which is fantastic. The visual effects have reached a real peak is probably the wrong word because it will continue to improve, I'm sure. But there isn't a moment where you don't think you aren't hanging out with real apes and monkeys and such. Andy Serkis is great. The person who Schu's back, it sounds like.
Hey, is that any better?
There we go.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Yeah. So
Right.
I was just chatting about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
It was probably the best 2 minutes in the history of Film Geek Primer.
Yeah, it was enthralling. Let me tell you. But anyways, what I was about to say about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is so Toby Kebbell, who is a British actor who people will know from. He has a small scene in The Counselor, but he was also in Rock and Rolla. He's in War Horse. He's a character actor who's been in lots of different stuff here and there, and a guy I actually really like. There's something about him when I first witnessed him in Rock and Rolla, and he's got this interesting kind of charisma about him that I really dug. Anyways, he plays Koba, one of the other apes, and I think he outdoes Circus as far as the acting goes. He is incredible in it. And really, really fantastic. I don't know if it's going to get him bigger projects or anything like that, but he's really, really great. So I hope he does more work. Anyways, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. We'll probably talk about it later at some point when Dub and Warren around. Yeah, everybody's back.
Right.
So we'll get to that. Anyway, so what we had. Let's chat a little bit. We got 15 minutes here. Let's chat a little bit about Schwarzenegger. Because you and I had an interesting conversation the other night about Arnold Schwarzenegger, because we had both seen one of his more recent efforts. Actually, I guess his most recent effort, Sabotage, came out after Escape Plan, right?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Yes.
And Escape Plan, I still need to see. Since The Governator has come back, we have had. Is it just the 3 films? Is it just The Last Stand? To the best
of my knowledge, there may be a 4th one out there that I'm drawing a blank on. It seems like there might be a 4th, but I'm not coming up with it right now.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of it either. But it's so right now we have The Last Stand, we have Sabotage, and we have Escape Plan, or kind of the 3 high-profile movies that have come out since Schwarzenegger has re-entered the acting realm and blessed us with his presence. And he was a guy who was, we would say, the biggest action star, American action star in America, I should say, for close to a decade, maybe, man.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Mm-hmm.
You know, close to decade and a half, and then near the end, before he we had End of Days and The Sixth Day, and a lot of movies with Day in the title.
With Day. His Day.
Jingle All the Day.
Yes.
Yeah. And around, I think he was in Around the World in 80 Days, the remake of that. Jesus, he must have just been looking for scripts with the word day in it. But then he kind of gave up to run for governor, retired from acting for a bit to run for governor, and then came back. Oh, I guess he's had his little bits in the Expendables movies, but I don't know if we count those. But yeah, so which one have you seen? You've seen all 3 of his latest films,
I've seen all 3, yes.
Okay, and in
order, I would say I think they're all okay. Mm-hmm. Some of them are good. So I'd say if you were ranking them in order, I'd go Sabotage, Escape Plan, and The Last Stand.
Okay.
And Sabotage and Escape Plan, I think, are good.
Yeah.
And The Last Stand is, it's all right. It's much more by the numbers.
The Last Stand feels much more like his heyday.
Yeah.
You know, like it feels like a throwback to his heyday movies.
Right.
Except he's walking around going, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's the only he's playing Danny Glover, the Danny Glover role in old Schwarzenegger films.
Though, and I think a lot of what's happening from a perspective standpoint. One, you have the action genre, which is not anywhere near what it was when Schwarzenegger and Stallone were and Willis were at the top of their game and making immense amounts of money as a result of it. There are a lot of reasons why that is.
Right.
So it has become, but without the franchise tag, it has become kind of a secondary property aspect of it. So the money that goes into these movies isn't nearly, you're not going to green light, you're not going to say, you know what, because Schwarzenegger's in it, automatically Sabotage is a $150 million film. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay,
right.
There's a lot more of what Liam Neeson and Jason Statham do in the action genre with smaller budgets, and Schwarzenegger and Stallone are, I think, working within that realm generally as well.
Oh, completely, yeah.
But what happens as a result of it is that I think you get this feedback from folks who already have a predetermined opinion as to what's going on here. You've got a guy who's old, who moves slower, who was, a ridiculous caricature 20 and 30 years ago. I know that this is going to be a stupid movie. I don't even want to bother with it. and what I think is actually, and so they're just sort of brushed aside. I don't know that a whole heck of a lot of folks talked much about Sabotage. I don't know that a whole heck of a lot of folks talked a heck of a lot about the prison film. I don't know that a whole heck of a lot of folks talked about The Last Stand.
Yeah, I think The Last Stand had a lot of pre-talk because it was his big comeback movie.
Right.
And then basically kind of fizzled, and then all his other films have kind of fizzled somewhat. And with Escape Plan, it was like, oh, finally Stallone and Schwarzenegger together. But that's just for like that. I bet that's a movie that's going to do like huge on video in the Midlands. You know what I mean?
It's probably, yeah, it might. But you know what? The thing that I think gets missed in this is that if these are films that had been made in between their immense box office success,
sure,
they would the conversations that would take place. There'd be a lot of rediscovering conversations, and these would be successful cult films that would have a lot more play than the movies are getting now, because you have this predisposed mentality that they're a bunch of old guys trying to
recapture their
glory days, and why should I bother?
Right.
But in reality, they're pretty good films.
Right.
And Sabotage is a really interesting movie, John, because its atmosphere from the first frame to the last is so dark.
Yeah, it's nihil. I mean, it is pure nihilism.
In America, I'm not sure there's ever been, and this includes Traffic and The Counselor and some of this other stuff, although I think The Counselor's shit. I'm not sure there's been a from front to back more consistently dark film about the nastiness of the cartel mentality than Sabotage is.
Right.
And that goes along, and that's a very interesting project to undertake and to be a part of and to play, and I think it's largely successful. The part where it fails is that every character is basically the same, and they rattle through bullshit Call of Duty, Marine kind of, tough guy, cop, law enforcement, no care, bust your balls dialogue.
Yeah.
Everybody in the movie does it. It's okay. There's no difference in it at all. But when they don't talk, it's a pretty good film.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty consistent film, and its darker components are pretty interesting. So I think if you looked at this movie based on its quality, not based on the time that it came out, but it would be regarded, I think, a lot more favorably than ultimately it's going to be. I think it's going to be very interesting in 10 or 15 years down the road if folks are looking to try to find lost gems. Right. I think in the action genre, I think a couple of those movies are the types of films that could fall under that category. I think Escape Plan is a very solid action film that goes through, that does about as much as you can within the parameters of the material provided for it. So I think it's surprisingly, it looks like when you watch it, it's like, oh God, really this? But then it's pretty entertaining. It moves pretty well. The action's solid. The twists are good. It works its way around to making sense and does what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So I think those are both films that have done a nice job in that regard. Now, if you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, does Escape Plan because Escape Plan is the one of these three that I haven't seen. Sabotage does no winking at the camera, which is something that I really appreciated. Sabotage is not. Escape
Plan might do it on occasion, but a lot less than you think.
Okay.
At least that's my recollection of it. Again, it's been probably a year and a half since I've seen it.
Yeah,
but I remembered enjoying it when it came out.
I feel like Escape Plan's biggest flaw is that it's just too late. It's that everybody wanted the Stallone Schwarzenegger team up back in the early mid '90s, and waiting a decade, 2 decades really to finally get it.
Yeah, and in that regard, I think that's fair. And if you're looking for the great grand film where the two of them get together, Escape Plan would have disappointed people, I think, in that regard 20 or 30 years ago.
Sure.
But for what it is as a lower budget, futuristic escape from prison film, it meets those marks really well. and I think does a really good job, and it's a very solid, underappreciated entry into the modern action genre.
Gotcha. What now?
Right.
How many action films do you still watch, kind of on a general basis?
I'll see most of the box office ones. I'll see most of the Stathams and most of the crap I just named it. Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, sure.
Yeah.
So what in your book, kind of what's kind of the creme de la creme of these movies? Because again, they're all hit and miss for each of them, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And so I'm kind of curious of the films, because like I think the original Taken, and I don't know if the original Taken is good or it was just such a fucking surprise at the time because nobody expected Liam Neeson to be able to kick ass the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Statham. Statham's one of those dudes that's got way too much charisma and charm, and for a guy who doesn't look like he should have any.
Right.
And so his, the Transporter movies, and he's actually got one called Redemption, I believe. That's very different.
Redemption's a different film, and Redemption is a movie that, and I'm sure you know this story, that was a script that Stallone had on his desk for like 15 years.
Oh, you're thinking about Homeland.
That's right. It's Homeland. Yeah. Right. And Homeland's really kind of interesting. Homeland is sort of Statham's version of what Sabotage is.
Okay.
There's a much more kind of darker, drearier, not as positive tone about it. Sabotage is much darker than Homeland is.
Right.
But they have those same sort of elements. Honestly, I've seen Redemption and don't even remember it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I don't think it was bad. I think a lot of these are okay. It's kind of the way I come out of it. I don't know that they're. I think you can make a fair argument that Sabotage is so much different in tone.
Completely.
And successful in the tone that it tries to convey.
Yeah, it's a nasty movie. Nasty is a really good word.
Movie, and it is. And that I think you can make a favorable argument toward putting it high up on that list. Again, I think Escape Plan holds up really well. I think Taken is good. I like a specific scene in Taken 2. I think it's okay. I even liked, and this is odd, I think maybe it was about a half hour too long, but the Kevin Costner, Luc Besson film, what is that, 3 Days to a Kill or something like that?
Oh, yeah, it was. Wasn't that the one directed by McG?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
That was a better film than I expected it to be.
Right.
I thought that film was okay.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that kind of creeps its way into the we're going to be released into theaters for a couple weeks thing that works that I think they do a nice job with. And they're not fantastic films, but I think they all do what they're kind of like what Marvel does with the superhero stuff. More often than not, it's done well. Sure. It's not stupendous, it's not fantastic, but more often than not, it's done well. And I think if you looked back at 80s action films, there's a lot of stuff that's really there's a lot of stuff I like. There's a lot of stuff that's really bad.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And some of the stuff we like is very nostalgic based versus it actually being good.
Right. Whereas now, one of the things that I think is interesting is that I think it took Stallone 2 films to figure this out. Expendables 2 is so much better than Expendables 1 because it does a better job of recognizing what it should be as kind of a greatest hits action film that gives you the things that you're supposed to expect from what all of these guys have done before.
Right.
What he wanted to do with Expendables 1 is the same thing he wanted to do with his Rambo effort.
Right.
And it was so over the top and gruesome with the action scenes in the last half hour or so that it kind of didn't bother to get to the point of what it was trying to get across. Which I think was some variation of his action version. It was kind of like he was trying to cleanse the soul of Rambo, of the 80s Rambo films, that there are repercussions for what you get involved in, or it makes you crazy or something like that, and then you go into this kind of ballistic cleansing process.
Right.
And this catharsis. And the first Rambo, I think, had that idea but didn't deliver and missed it. And the Expendables tried it, was basically the same film.
Sorry. When you say first Rambo, you mean the one he just made, or
that's correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. No,
yeah, because First Blood is almost a completely
Rambo.
different beast, right? Yeah.
Yes. First Blood's a great film.
Yeah, literally, it is legitimately a great film.
The Rambo incarnation,
right,
and the Expendables are really the same film. With one has a larger name cast, and they both fail in the same way. Whereas I think Schwarzenegger has done, but to his credit, Stallone I think has done a much better job, kind of getting back on track. Right. Escape Plan I think is well done. I expect I think the second Expendables was a fun film. I think the third Expendables is hopefully going to fall into that category as well. I think they're going to be much more nostalgic and much more get across what they want to do. You're going to get your quirky lines maybe here and there, but you kind of expect, it's a greatest hits film.
Sure.
Okay. You don't necessarily need to say more from it, but if you're trying to say more out of it, then hopefully what you're trying to say is delivered better than the other two examples that I brought up. Schwarzenegger, I think has done a little bit better job nailing down projects that work for him now.
Okay.
And I think to a lesser degree, I don't know if they've borrowed the model or if it's more coincidental, but I think in the straight-to-video realm, long before Statham was in his place, and long before Neeson got involved, and long before Stallone and Schwarzenegger returned, a couple guys specifically, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, put out a lot of these sort of kind of modernized loner westerns,
right?
That were pawned off as action films that were as much downer, solo, isolated character studies on guys who had, drug issues or alcoholism. Just, the classic broken down guy. They weren't heroes anymore. It was kind of, I guess if you want to say, deconstructing that whole hero mythology. They tried to do that.
Right.
They weren't particularly successful and probably failed more often than they succeeded, but both of them tried it, and I think continue to try it in the straight-to-video realm. That seems to be, to some degree, the direction that Stallone and Schwarzenegger have at least occasionally gone as well, and it's clearly the direction that Schwarzenegger did with Sabotage.
That's right.
Sabotage is Schwarzenegger's Unforgiven, and
yeah.
And I don't think anyone's going to say, boy, it was better than Unforgiven.
No.
But it ought to be given credit for what it ultimately accomplished and the way that Schwarzenegger played it off along the way, despite its, again, terrible dialogue.
Yeah.
That's really about the only complaint I have for it, and I appreciate that Schwarzenegger took it on, and I appreciate David Ayers for creating a film that from the first frame to the last frame didn't change tone in any way, shape, or form.
It is not a film that compromises, that is for sure. I mean, it's... like we said, it was a nasty film. It's a really nihilistic film. There isn't a single good person in this film, even except for maybe. And one of the things that I actually really liked about Sabotage was Olivia Williams, who plays the federal agent, is completely in a different realm than what she's used to playing. And I thought, and that was one of the things that I actually really appreciated about it. All the other dudes, although Sam Worthington, kind of unrecognizable, which impressed me as well. Although he looks like he's trying to pull off a Fred Durst look. But it's like there's no redeeming characters in this movie at all. It's like, it's all about, the main plot line is about revenge, and then and it's like innocent bystanders are killed because there's a great car chase where people blow away innocents in a car just to use the car as a roadblock, and it's not, and it's just vicious. It's a vicious fucking movie. It's a really interesting watch.
And I'm not sure maybe that movie can't get made if Schwarzenegger isn't involved in it.
Probably not.
And I'm wondering if Schwarzenegger played a role in getting other names involved in it as well. The cast has some weight. There are a lot of people in it who you recognize.
Yeah.
Beyond just Worthington. There are some guys who, I've seen him. There's that guy. Okay,
Yeah, and it's great because when they start getting knocked off, because it's a very kind of 10 Little Indians style film where they start dying, they start being killed off, and you're not sure who's doing it and why, and you're waiting who's going to get killed off next. And having a list of, because none of them are A actors, you've got a very solid list of television, lower grade movie actors, stuff like that. As a matter of fact, I think most of them are from like True Blood, Lost, The Killing, that crew, and then Terrence Howard, because the guy needs work. but it's nice because you're never really sure who's who, who's the killer, what's going on, and that level of cast really.
I think it's one of those things. If you looked back at the story, that might be a frustrating endeavor because I suspect that the story and the twists don't really hold up that well.
Oh, probably not. No.
But if you look at it from a movie of tonality,
yeah,
I think then it's very successful.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think the twist. The whodunit part of it holds up really at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very much about the just the dark, like the dark tone, the characters,
But don't you think that if this movie was out, recognizing its dark component, what you could do at a certain point in time,
right?
Don't you? If this movie had come out in the middle of the height of their action genre, and they tried to do a smaller piece, even if it wasn't accepted at the time, it wouldn't be hard for me to imagine that people looking for a lost nugget would go back and give Sabotage something like Sabotage a lot of credit, and it would get a lot of replay as a result of that.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think I even mentioned this before. I'll be curious to see if David Ayers reaches a auteur level at some point in time in the future, because I feel like he's been growing as a filmmaker with each film, and he's got a new movie called Fury coming out with Brad Pitt, World War II tank crew. And I'll be curious to see how that does. If that's the movie that breaks him out into kind of being a bigger director who will then get bigger projects and be recognized as David Ayers and not David Ayers, that in 10 to 15 years people will look back at his original string of films, Street Kings and this and Harsh Times and End of Watch and stuff like that, and be able to see, they will be used more as a study case for the cinema of David Ayers, and watching those parts coming together versus and so I don't know. I'll be fascinated to see what becomes of a film like Sabotage and his earlier work as he progresses as a filmmaker.
We'll keep an eye.
Yeah, I guess so. Anything else?
I think that's pretty sound. That's pretty for two losers like you and I. That's pretty good Friday night work.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? It's not bad. It's something to do. Hopefully,
maybe we're just committed to the project. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, no. If that were the case, I would say I can never work Tuesday nights. Therefore, I never do it. I've committed to my show. But hopefully, actually, that schedule is going to be changing, and I'll actually be home on Tuesdays around 8:30. So I'll be back to that. But as of now, I know that Dub's going to be taking over for the next week or two, doing the Tuesday shows. And we'll see what happens from there. It's for the 12 people that watch the show. We're still doing it. Woo! So where can people find you, sir?
Oh, that's right. In the reboot, I didn't put up my lower third because I'm mean like that. Try me at Schuniverse, SCHU Universe. Give that one a go. That one seems to work.
That's a good
Nobody
universe.
cares, but hey, what the heck?
And of course, you can follow me at John Santo. Questions, comments, leave below.
Because you do have a lower third.
I do have a lower third, and I'm too lazy to turn it off, so it stays up the entire time.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks, folks, for joining us or watching, and we will see you soon. So, Schu, go ahead and play us out.
This is kind of like the end theme of the Incredible Hulk version. It's very sad.
Very sad.
I hope it builds character.
It does. We are the two men who walk quietly through the night. All right, folks, we'll see you next time. Adios.